In the heart of the state-of-the-art, at the dawn of the next stage in entertainment, you found No Proscenium.
You have indeed found No Proscenium, the voice of everything immersive. Welcome to episode 354. I'm your host, Noah Nelson. This week on the show, you might detect a theme, that being games you play outside your home. Our first guest this week is Kevin Williams of Spider Entertainment and publisher of the amusement industry-focused Stinger Report, who we check in with on the state of VR in location-based entertainment. Then we have a chat with James Cobalt to talk about the Malden Gaming District in Malden, Massachusetts, a unique neighborhood that has drawn a collection of businesses offering games of all stripes, from the only Buddhaborg in the US to mini golf to the pending arrival of Cobalt's own venue, the Immersive Game Theater, all in the historic core of a town just outside of Boston. Which means this week's watchword is fun. But before pleasure must come the business. This podcast and all we do at NoPro is brought to you by our generous Patreon supporters. Our latest backers are Margaret Carrison, that name's familiar, and Lindsay Carpenter. This week, we're looking to get at least 5 new backers. We need 5 new backers at the $5 level to right the ship and keep up with rising costs. That's right, even the digital stuff is costing more to do, and we do need your support. Support like our sustaining backers, Ari Hurston, Chris Woolman, Samantha Davison, Eric Shamlin, Elaine, Jay Bushman, Jerome Joseph Gentis, David Bassick, Richard Ayers, Lonnie Hanson, Mark Baltazar, Sydney Guillory, and Jan Budman. Thank you all for your continued major support. Patreon.com/NoProscenium is where you go to help us out. And with that, let's get to the show. Few people know the worlds of location-based entertainment like Kevin Williams of Spider Entertainment, who has been working in and shaping this field both as a creative and as founder and publisher of the Stinger Report, a must-read in the amusement and attractions industry. He's also one of my all-time favorite guests on this here little podcast. Kevin, it's good to have you back.
Oh, it's very kind of you to say that, and I hope I find you well.
You find me good enough on a very hot Wednesday morning in Los Angeles.
Oh, it's a very hot evening here in London.
I've heard, and I've been mortified for everyone over there. It's like, it's not fair. Y'all shouldn't have to deal with that. So what we're doing right now, this conversation started as most things do these days as a DM, because location-based entertainment, LBE for short, is stretching its legs as the high pandemic gives way to this new normal. And you had posted something on Facebook, and I responded, and then I was like, oh, I should bring Kevin on the show, because you had just gone to Sandbox VR, which had just opened in London. And I'm wondering, since this is your speciality, what's your read on Sandbox debut?
Well, it's interesting. So we're looking at this being the 18th Sandbox venue. For those people that don't know, Sandbox VR is a free roaming location-based entertainment facility akin to what our friends at The Void previously attempted. And the interesting thing about this particular one in London, and I've had the chance to do a number of them in America and Asia, is this is the first franchise. So now we're seeing that 400 million that they raised from the likes of Amazon, my apologies, Alibaba, and the AAA investors has now sort of had to come out of being an exclusive and to be more ruggedized as a concept that every person could go for. And in the London facility, we're seeing some additions. They've increased, they've added a kind of social entertainment aspect to the mix, which is something that we're seeing across a lot of the aspects with the, as you call it, the post-COVID location-based bounce that we're seeing.
So when we say like a social space, so like there's like a gathering point, a bar in front, and then the pods are behind that. Is it, so does it feel like you've stepped into like a almost like a not even like a movie theater lobby, but more like a theater lobby? Because a theater lobby always has a bar. I guess movie theaters now have bars too, but
So
is
people who've been to Sandbox VR venues know that they're a little bit stuck on
mhm.
fixtures and fittings. There's the registration area, which is handled through kiosks. There's the briefing area, and then there's the enclosure, the arena, the free roaming space. And this particular site is unusual that it has four of those units, so they can have quite a few parties running through. They also have an upstairs private bar area for private events. And the centerpiece, literally the centerpiece attraction there, is that they've got a cocktail robot. So that kind of makes the space a kind of high tech, technology based social entertainment environment. Not aiming
Yeah,
at the kids, it's not an arcade.
yeah, that's really interesting because like little shades of Bit Circus here in LA. They've got a
Of
cocktail
course.
robot and the bar and the food, and then they had those little, they don't have big arena free roam. Like they've got one space where they sometimes pop that stuff up into, but they did a bunch of VR cabanas, although they converted a lot of those into, or at least two of them into small kind of escape game
Exactly.
adjacent uh, pieces.
Well, two
Um,
Bit Circus really did try and cut their own path, plough their own field, as it were. They developed a lot of the original attractions that went into the Los Angeles facility. Their micro theme park, they developed themselves, and some of them hit, some of them didn't, and so those areas were pulled out. And so they've now pivoted, and they where they had their VR experience that they had created themselves, they've now removed that and placed a Hologate off the shelf platform. And we know that they'll be opening their Dallas facility soon, and there'll be a lot more off the shelf products going into that space.
you mentioned the void, and pre-pandemic we saw their take on it, which was similar in the kind of the starkness. There were you go in, there's the check-in kiosk, there's a briefing area, and then there might be one or two stages behind. I think Anaheim had two, uh, Glendale had one, and these were strip mall and mall space. Actually, where is the Sandbox spot? This sounds like a pretty big spot. Is this off a high street? Is this somewhere all on its own? Where have they
So,
situated
so
themselves?
Covent Garden is a large tourist and leisure area in the centre of London. Uh, Near Trafalgar Square. Well, you need to know your London anatomy, but Leicester Square, and then you've got Covent Garden area, and just off of that, uh, kind of there is this brand new building that's gone in, and they've taken a considerable unit, about 12,000 square feet, I think, off the top of my head, to make this multi-layer. So on the ground floor is the robot and the briefing areas. On the top floor is this bar area that I was talking about, and in the basement area are these three pods with a fourth one on the first floor, but used as a kind of on the ground floor, but used more as a private hire location.
Mm, I mean, that's a lot of territory. 3 floors. Um,
They utilize it well. As you said with the Void, it was a minimalistic approach. It is as I like to call it, the wannabe Apple Store approach to retail facility layout, or retail attainment, as these spaces are usually called.
do you think the strategy that Sandbox is pursuing by having this feel like a social destination, is this a serious step up um, for this standalone VR attraction uh, setting, or is this like the 8 billionth stab at doing some of this? Because I'll think of a David Buster's, I'll think
Mm.
of oh God, what was that? GameWorks back in the
Oh, yeah.
day, which I really loved. I'm a
Soon to
arcade
be
game
back
nerd.
again.
Really? Oh, I'm excited.
You need to go to Seattle. That original GameWorks facility has been reopened by a new management group, so that they're taking a stab at it again. And funny enough, what caused the demise of our friends at the Void is very similar to what really caused the demise of the final version of GameWorks. And so both of these entities are sort of asking to use one of their spare credits to come back to life again and have another attempt.
Because that is the case. Like the Void is also aiming to come back, but to kind of, I'm the one who derailed us there with talk of GameWorks. You should have seen the look on my face. We're not doing video. I'm like completely like, oh, really? And I got friends in Seattle, so I'm like, oh, go to GameWorks, yes.
Well, hopefully the Vegas facility will open up again.
Well, I think I'd been to the Seattle one, like on my one trip to Seattle many moons ago. I made a point of like, I got to go to GameWorks while I'm here. So, but this proposal, if you will, this prototype
Yes.
for the franchise that Sandbox has laid out. I mean, do you think this is a really strong foot forward? Like, does this feel right to you? What they're doing?
So I've been following the Sandbox creation from their Hong Kong roots, and the novel VR is one of those things. This is for me in location-based entertainment. This is the third time that VR has tried to establish itself as a successful platform for deployment in location-based entertainment. And this is a very important moment because the technology is viable, but it's now down to the experience, getting away from the novelty and becoming the money generation. And from Sandbox VR's point of view, they've had a very large bucket of money to throw at this problem. They made some interesting mistakes based upon their interpretation of what the entertainment market is, coming from an entrepreneurial basis. They are literally learning how to cook from the beginning, and my feeling is that it's all down to the content and the experience. So if they can, price it right, roll out regular updates, and keep it fresh, then they've got a better chance of surviving than their predecessors. The issues are they're a one-hit experience, and our industry at the moment is looking more at new terminology, mules, mixed-use leisure entertainment venues that have a bit of this and a bit of that and a bit of everything, rather than venues that just depend on one experience. And with the explosion in competitive socializing that we're seeing, the miniature golf, the axe throwing, the beer pong, the retro arcades, there may be a space for this, but you understand that technology and cocktails is not always good bedfellow.
Yes, I do. Well, talk to me a little bit about the mule here, the mixed use. Mixed use leisure
Entertainment.
entertainment. Okay, good. I got it on the first time. Is that form sort of looking for its proper alchemy? Because you mentioned a bunch of things that can go in, and I instantly started thinking of the way kind of Area 15 in Vegas as sort of a
Perfect
meta,
example.
yeah, like a meta mule, because you've got
Yes.
Omega Mart, major attraction. They also have a retro arcade. They've got an axe throwing bar. They've got a few other little things here and there. They've got some of these
Yes.
individual VR units. So in many ways, like that's what Area 15
And
is.
it's a moving feast. It isn't nailed down. They can pull out a failing object and drop in a new one.
Yeah,
For most people, the mule is not a new dichotomy to understand. It is fundamentally what a family entertainment center is. Your
yeah.
Dave and Buster's is a mixed-use leisure entertainment facility. They prefer to be called an entertainment site, or was it urban entertainment center, purely because that is the expression to the audience. No one goes to the children or goes to their best friends on a Thursday evening or a Friday evening and shouts, "Hey, let's go to a location-based entertainment center." That's only what we do in the trade. It's let's go to an entertainment facility. It's got cocktails. Let's go to that sports bar.
Yeah.
So Dave and Buster's, Chuck E. Cheese are mixed-use leisure entertainments. They have their private party area, they have their restaurant area, they have their amusement area, they have their soft play area. In Dave and Buster's case, they have their sports bar, they have their scratch-built food area, they have their redemption prices, they have their amusements, they even have their virtual reality experiences. And the trick about successful mules is the flexibility of the package that you're offering your audience, keeping it fresh. And usually the failures are the entertainment venues that are set in stone. And so we
Mm.
have a number of, as a consultant before starting Spider Entertainment, I was called in a lot by investors to do post-mortem on projects. And though it's very good for the brain, it is also very hard on the investors' wallet to hear the reasons why their investment has been squandered, and so you have to go into the minutiae and you have to lessen the blow. And one of those, it's been a lot of people have turned to me and said, "Look, if you know so much, do it yourself. You come from a Disney background. Why haven't you rolled out your own location-based entertainment initiatives?" And so that's part of the reason why Spider Entertainment was created. Was our fundamental is we brought together specialists in the sector to actually make a go of a much more professional rollout of location-based entertainment concepts internationally. No insults to the people that are rolling out their own projects, but a lot of this isn't dark arts. A lot of what goes into these facilities is known applications. It just needs to be done correctly. So to your point about Sandbox pivoting towards competitive socializing or more of a social entertainment network, I think that's them following the zeitgeist, or the franchisees, should I say. The person who's purchased the franchise for London has decided to go for, to cover their losses and go for a much more wider offering rather than just two arenas in a high foot traffic area and hope that enough people will go onto the app to register to come in. You also created a place that offers a private hire aspect. And for most people who look at location-based entertainment, we have rules that kind of tell us that 40% of your revenue is going to be coming from the private party, private hire, social gathering events. And especially post-pandemic, we're seeing a lot of people wanting to get physical in
Yeah.
an entertainment kind of way.
I mean, one of the lessons I've taken as we move out of the high pandemic into this low is people really do want to connect with each other in person, and some folks, they want to keep it to their pod. And escape gaming had already pre-pandemic really started to lean towards away from public ticketing for any of the escape games, because people
Exactly.
found it wasn't fun to play with randos. Like it was often painful. I'm sure there were a
It's
few.
interesting about the escape room business. The escape room business is a phenomenal industry, but it has very few chains. There are
Yeah.
most escape room facilities, including the most successful of the ones that are located in cities, are one-hit Charlies. They are a facility that has developed itself, built up an audience, and as you say, knows its audience, which is not drop-in but private hire. And some of the most successful of the escape rooms, especially in New York and London and Los Angeles, work very hard with their reservation platforms. And I think we will be seeing a change in how escape room business goes. And part of that will be fueled by the competitive socializing aspect. The escape room needing to offer a private hire experience also means that they need to think about their cocktails, they need to think about food offering, they even need to think about their changeability, updating the facility.
Yeah. The one of the things that's interesting about the escape room world is, like, you have the deep enthusiasts. So you have the folks who they go on holiday and, like, they want to hit as many escape games
Oh
in
God, yes.
a given area as they can, right? There's tours that get organized even. And
And
so
yeah,
a facility can last for some number of years based on that traffic we've seen so far, right? Like there's
yes.
probably an end date, but
Or
they
a
because
period
they
of
tend to be
update.
unique. Hmm?
Or a period of update when they need to actually bite the bullet and go for an update of their facility, a rebranding, a repurchasing of experiences.
Yeah, I mean, there's some pieces that, like, oh God, I'm thinking of, like, there's a unit down in it's an individual facility down in Orange County, and
Yep.
they had three games going, and one of the games was really inventive, but they cycled that one out, and they're putting, I think, something that's a little more. It sounds like maybe a little more conventional, but with them, conventional is never ever really entirely the name of the game. But they replaced what was basically a social deduction style game with what
Yeah.
sounds like they're leaning towards something that's a little bit more traditional escape room, but still they have a good reputation, and they're always down with twists. So
And a
and
lot of the, if you followed, for the book that we did on the out of home entertainment sector, I had to delve into the world of the escape room. How the first of the Hungarian and the Japanese concepts that then turned into permanent facilities that are the escape room that we know today. And the escape room is, if you look at the Venn diagram that I use to describe the out of home entertainment sector, it is still in that part of the market where it hasn't established itself as a proper genre. It has established itself as an industry, and
mm,
sitting next door to it is the scare attraction industry. So you kind of see a crossover. The same people that like doing the Halloween jump out and scare pop up installations that will start their rollout in a couple of weeks' time for the Halloween business, also share some similarities in operational and approach and business that the escape room sector has. And the one thing about the escape room applications, there's three core flavors. There's the incredibly clever DIY version where someone's been down to IKEA and a locksmith and created a very homebrew version. Then there is the plug and play where you buy the kit, the how to operate your own escape room package, and then you have the top of the range, which are specially developed. Universal has at the Orlando park a specially themed attraction that is kind of an escape room that opens up to capture that market. That's the escape room business. That kind of model doesn't usually apply in location-based entertainment. The enthusiast with a will, a screwdriver, and a paintbrush usually get away with it for the first facility and then have to grow incredibly quickly to survive.
do you feel like there's a boom on the horizon for location based entertainment? I mean, so much of retail footprint has changed over the past decade. So there's a lot of commercial space that's available. Um, there's maybe less foot traffic, though, all at the same time. The movie business has changed. Um, as everyone's kind of glued to their screens, it feels like on the one hand, we're sort of being acculturated away from going out, but in the same breath, we see how popular music festivals are and the proliferation of those. We see just the human urge to congregate doesn't go away just because we've got every movie we could possibly and game we could possibly ever want to
Mm,
play on a
mm,
screen plugged into our homes 24/7.
yeah.
um, where do you think we are in the arc here of the boom and bust cycle of LBE?
Well, we were in 2019 just about to start what you would call a boom, and I would call a period of extreme growth. Uh, if you look at the sine wave of location-based entertainment, it goes through booms and busts, as it were. It goes through strong periods of popularity. And recently, experiential has gone through the roof as something people wanted an experience that they couldn't achieve at home that was unique. The sudden growth in secret cinema, the sudden interest in theme parks and adult entertainment facilities, and then along came the global health crisis, and all the specialists, all the experts, all the pundits said that the restaurant, cinema, and location-based entertainment industries were going to die and never come back. And being a realist, I've been through a number of recessions. I haven't been through a pandemic before, and I hope I'd never go through that again. But as a realist, I know that our industry is not, as some people like to call, recession-proof, but it is recession resilient. We are a physical industry that is difficult to emulate sitting at home. And as you're seeing, uh, though consumer gaming is still very popular and streamed entertainment is very popular, after people were allowed to leave their front doors and get out into the real world, we have seen an increase in investment in location based entertainment and also in social entertainment aspects. The Putt Shack is a very well known British mini golf cocktail experience, location based entertainment concept. And that has rolled out a number of facilities in England and then received a considerable amount of investment to start rolling out in North America. Wouldn't surprise the listeners to know that the people behind uh, Putt Shack are also the same experts that were behind Top Golf, which is the incredibly popular social entertainment golf shooting range experience. Um, and now we're seeing quite considerable amounts of investment being put in to try and roll this out. As you stated, cinema is in the process of trying to reinvent itself. Some cinemas are going to the wall, other cinemas are downscaling and becoming much more exclusive social environments with food and cocktail and better seating and removing the sticky carpets. And in the retail sector, retail attainment has grown where people are still going to the malls. People are still going, not shopping, but going, what some people like to say, that they're going to a car showroom, even though they're buying their car online. They're going to an Apple store, even though they're going to buy their Apple equipment online. So the mall industry is thinking that it's going to become much more of a showroom, and to increase dwell time, they're looking at entertainment that can fit into retail units. And you could say that the Void, Dreamscape, and Sandbox VR were examples of VR location-based entertainment that was built to sit in either the foyer of a cinema or that could be put into a retail unit.
You mentioned something like the Void, something like Dreamscape, sitting in the foyer of a cinema, or being. I mean, I think of the Void being like right there at the front of the Glendale Galleria in Glendale, or that Dreamscape was making the deals with AMC to put Dreamscape, and I think they still have some of these units inside AMC theaters.
Yeah.
Is that the destiny for the free roam VR, or do you think that they're going to be able to be this sandbox model of having its own kind of franchise facility, so that it is the attraction in itself and not the the plus up of a night on the town?
I think it's incredibly difficult to feed the monster of location-based entertainment if you don't have multiple offerings. I think also saddling yourself with extreme royalties through licensing can be an albatross too difficult to bear. And also, the way that many of these companies have positioned themselves is that they're riding the razor blade of technology. So, along with having to create extreme content, as well as trying to pare down this technology to be suitable for Joe Schmo to visit it, you also need to have a very savvy business model on your facility. It's sometimes it's vampiric, where you put these attractions near where there's high foot traffic. So a popular mall doing a deal with a large mall operation is commonplace. We saw that with Netflix when they did their experimentation with Army of the Dead, Viva Vengeance. The first rollouts of those virtual reality experiences based on a licensed IP were put in high foot traffic shopping mall locations. And even their first permanent facility is put next door to Area 15 in the entertainment hub there in Las Vegas. So you can see the thinking behind this. But sometimes with virtual reality, they may be thinking that the technology is the be all and end all, and they're not actually thinking about the overall dwell time experience.
You mentioned being on the razor's edge of technology, and the VR folks sometimes putting all the chips on that.
Oh, yeah.
Are there things on the tech horizon here, whether aspects of it moving to the home market and that may be taking away some of the novelty, or things that are too pricey to set up in your living room or garage if you are lucky enough to have a living room or garage, that are going to be going to drive more people out to encounter this stuff.
It was very difficult for the virtual reality startups. They were sold a story that everybody would dedicate a certain space within their homes to having the best VR setup. That was the argument behind the Vive and the CV1 from Oculus. And then when that didn't achieve the numbers, it was the argument that, oh, well, it must be the price of the VR hardware that's stopping this becoming a ubiquitous mainstream technology. Now we're learning a little bit more about how successful the Quest 2 actually has been in sales, and now we're seeing the pivot of, oh, well, maybe it needs to be linked to multiple experiences. I work in the out-of-home entertainment sector. If you can do this at home, you're going to do it at home. You don't need to go out from your comfortable settee and couch and go to a location-based entertainment to do it. So that's why out-of-home entertainment VR isn't just about doing VR in many cases. It's about multiple player experiences, which you can't do with the current consumer technology. It's about physicality, having physical effects, wind, scent, vibration, haptics. So we're about the big experience. So we're kind of like the trying to scale a theme park into a Macy's or a Sears store, rather than trying to expand a consumer system and make it viable for location-based. We do use some of the technology that comes from consumer application, but most of the time we're using technology that comes from enterprise. So one of the most successful head-mounted displays in our industry, location-based, is the Vive Pro. Which is the commercial variant of the HTC Vive family of headsets. We are now just seeing, towards your question about technological advancements, our industry is looking very closely at streamed VR. So we're using the latest 6G technology, and we have people foregoing the need for a backpack. They don't have to have that cumbersome PC to go around and experience the VR environment. And we can have more people moving together in synchronized virtual reality experiences. That's technology that won't be achievable off the shelf from a consumer system. You have enough problems just rendering your legs in most consumer VR low-cost experiences. And there's nothing wrong with that. Beat Saber is an incredibly successful product. It was very successful in location-based entertainment, and it is, a product that is hoping to sell the future of the Quest. But fundamentally, out-of-home entertainment is about the experience being second to none. The phrase we like to use is unachievable at home. So consumer is consumer. I expect that the Sony PlayStation VR System 2 will be very successful for Sony and for the sale of PlayStation 5s and for the content. Will that have a life outside in the out-of-home entertainment sector? No, but I wouldn't be surprised if certain content migrates into our sector. The best example we have is our friends at Ubisoft. Ubisoft, as well as being into mobile gaming, as well as being into online gaming, as well as being into console PC gaming, they also have an interest in location-based entertainment. There's Ubisoft Escape Games VR, where they create versions of their popular IP as virtual reality escape games. And they've just did a deal with one of the largest of the free-roaming location-based entertainment operators, Zero Latency, and they created a version of the Far Cry game, which you can play groups of 4 people playing in the Far Cry universe. Very compelling. The same way that it was compelling for Lucas and Disney to have a virtual reality experience that utilized the Star Wars universe or the Wreck-It Ralph universe, you will see the IP holders looking at location-based entertainment as a very useful market recognition tool alongside their consumer interests.
Well, I am always watching this space with rapt interest, and it's got this Wild West feel to it to this day. But I'm very glad to see that the story of VR in LBE is far from over. It seems. Kevin, thanks for coming by and bringing us up to speed on what's happening in out of home entertainment and VR in this 2022 strange year of ours.
Thank you very much for having us on, and I look forward to coming back to you when we open our first facilities to see how that Wild West is going.
Oh, please do. Please do. About 6 miles north of Boston, across the Mystic River, Malden, Massachusetts is a town with just under 70,000 souls, and as everyone's favorite, Wikipedia, tells us, was the first town to petition the colonial government to secede from the British Empire. There's a different kind of historic first, this time in the 21st century, that delights us today, and that's the Malden Gaming District, a collection of game-based businesses gathered in the town's historic core. Joining us today is James Cobalt, founder of the Immersive Game Theater, which is in the gaming district, to talk to us about this unique spot here in the USA. James, thanks for taking time away from your lunch to talk with us today.
Thanks, Noah.
Didn't think I was going to go there. Okay, so I gave the SparkNotes version of what the gaming district is, but you're an active part of it. So how do you define this place?
Oh, how do I define it? Well, I think of it as like a neighborhood. Really, it's just a couple city blocks. And it is a city. Malden is technically a different city from Boston, but if you're familiar with the area, you would know like Boston is the size of a pea, and there are all these other cities with similar population density right around it. I mean, I could literally run to Boston from here. So it's not like LA where everything is really spread out and you have to drive everywhere, right? So, the gaming district, it's basically right by one of the subway stops. It's off of the Orange Line. And it's kind of started out as a confluence, kind of a lucky one, of a couple nerdy gaming related businesses. And as anyone who's taken like Business 101 in college knows, like there is synergy by getting similar businesses next to each other. It's not necessarily competition. It helps everybody out. So it started in 2015 with the first and still only U.S. location of Buddhaborg, which is this kind of like this arcade of different challenges, physical, mental, and so on. Kind of like, I describe it as like if Mario Party was real.
Oh.
Like there's like a bunch of series of small rooms, each with a unique challenge that you play with your friends. And they're short, right? They're like maybe 3 to 5 minutes long. And so they chose Malden as their first U.S. location. And I wrote to the mayor's office saying, like, this could actually be something really great for us if we kind of piggyback off of this, because our city didn't really have much to define ourselves from some of the other cities around here. I think people thought of it kind of like as just a residential city, and we had some nice restaurants in this downtown core area of Malden, this like few blocks around the subway station, but it wasn't a destination for people. Like if you were in Boston, you weren't going to take the train 15 minutes north into Malden. And they were looking for some hooks, and they did build like a small stadium, I believe, to host some like local and regional games. But I was saying like, hey, you already have you have Buddhaborg. Now you have these other things. If you can attract a few other businesses to the area, then you could basically have an entertainment district. So either that inspired somebody in the office, or somebody had the same idea at the same time, because basically the head of business development in the mayor's office started reaching out to other businesses and trying to attract them into this area. So
that's fascinating to me. Like, it's such, being in Los Angeles and talking with a lot of folks across the scope of the states, and knowing, like, in a lot of cities, escape games, immersive gaming, immersive theater, any of this stuff is seen as alien and strange and weird, and like the permitting folks don't want to deal with the permitting for it. The fire department wishes it would all just go away. It tends to be generally hostile. And here's a town looking for an identity for itself and says, like, oh, we got these things, let's roll with it. How I guess it seems to be working. Like, more businesses showed up.
Yeah. So a couple things happened. One is Buddhaborg was a huge success, and it brings tons of people to that downtown area, and they're hungry after. So it's like the restaurants are like they're just doing very, very, very well. Buddhaborg by nature spits a lot of people through its doors, like, because these are short experiences. So tons of, hundreds of people come in, hundreds of people come out every night, and they look for places to eat. So they saw it in the numbers, the city did. And it also helps that the head of business development there is an enthusiast to some of these experiences. Like, he just took his family out to go to like Meow Wolf, and they hit a bunch of escape rooms in California. And so that helps, of course, too. But I think it was like having that initial business that you could point to and say, look, people actually come here. They go out of their way to experience this, right? And so they would talk about the experience economy and how they wanted to go all in on that. So they've brought a few more businesses. There's a almost like Meow Wolf meets mini golf place. It's like psychedelic mini golf.
Huh.
It's very artsy and a little scrappy, and it has this concept of being a science experiment. So everyone's in lab coats and stuff, trying to make, I guess, mini golf more immersive.
We love ourselves some mini golf.
It's a lot of fun.
And in fact, I know for a fact that one of the founders of Meow Wolf loves VR mini golf, so they should like invite them out. Sorry, I'm obsessed with mini golf these days.
Yeah, they also brought in a really big pool hall. They brought in like an esports place that has a VR as well, but they have like a lot of battle stations for people. They also they're talking to, like, there's some things I can't talk about yet because they haven't signed, but like the city gets really involved. So like, for example, there's this huge, like, oh gosh, it's it must be like 16,000 square feet, old historic bank building right at the end of the street. And the city's like, hey, they went to the developers and they said, hey, we're trying to make a gaming district here, so let us help you try to find somebody that would be interested in this space for that purpose. And then the developers were like, that'd be great, of course, like the city's going to help us, cool. There were also things that were already there. So like there were restaurants, right? So the city asked, like, hey, would you be interested in setting up like Street Fighter at your cocktail bar or something, right? Like the library, would you be interested in hosting board game nights? We don't have a board game cafe, but there's a library right there, and they have a ton of board games, so just host something.
So that's a high level of involvement from the city to like really kind of give this identity. That's a lot more than I was thinking was going to be going on. Like going to the library and setting up board game night and like saying like, oh, hey, could you put Pac-Man over here?
But like, it's low lift. It's so easy to just ask somebody. Like there were other things that were recontextualized a little bit kind of to fit into that. So there's like a karaoke TV place, right, that scores your singing. So it's like, is it a game? Well, no, I don't know, but there are points. And it's a fun thing to do with friends.
Has this sort of changed who comes into town? I mean, obviously it's bringing people in, but like, do you feel like it's changed like the nature of like the weekend crowd?
Oh yeah. I mean, one of my friends who used to live here in Malden came to visit, because we're opening up our space. We've only run one. We ran like an immersive concert there last year, and now we're rebuilding everything to do this kind of like LARP escape room hybrid. So one of my good friends who used to live here came to visit and see the build out and how it was going. And she got off the train and started laughing hysterically because she was like, am I at the right? Like, I don't even recognize this place. And she grew up here. And in just like 5 years, it looks completely different. The buildings look completely different and the crowds look very different. It used to be very sleepy. And now you have people of all types, especially kids, which you would never see in the area. And now you have like a lot of families coming as well.
For the folks who are coming in, other than like easy access to all this stuff at once, I guess, what are the other advantages to them? Like I'm trying to think of this from the point of view of the patron, right? Because from the business point of view, those synergies make sense. Having the city on your side makes sense. I'm wondering if there's sort of, are there elements of culture that are starting to kind of form around these? Like, you mentioned families coming in, but is there like a rhythm of the calendar year where people are going? Is there a high turnover on the games, or is this sort of the kind of thing where people come in for a weekend, knock a bunch of stuff out, and then go, and it just becomes tourist destination? Or is there a culture forming?
I think there is a culture forming. So there's a comic shop here in the district that hosts like Magic the Gathering nights, and it's almost like informal. Like it's like not even official, but somebody was like, let's host them. Like one of the employees wanted to do it, and now, like I think twice a week, a bunch of people gather out in front of the store, and then they head to one of the bars that is opened up in the area, and they play. And I've heard from so many people that are like, oh, yeah, I've played at Buddhaborg 4 times because it has high replayability. So I think it's mostly local or regional, rather. People definitely are driving in from like southern New Hampshire, which, again, for people not familiar with New England, all our states are very, very tiny. Everything is small here. So it's not a big deal.
LA folks, that means driving from Orange County. And I think I may be completely accurate with that. And I'm not talking Irvine. I'm talking Anaheim. Maybe Buena Park. Sorry.
Yeah.
My aunt lives in a redacted town, but out there. So like, yeah, I know. When I was a kid, we like went from one of the suburbs in Boston to go up to New Hampshire, like one of the battlefields or something like that, because like that's what you did. And I'm like, oh, we're getting in the car. Wow, this is going to be, and then we were there in 5 minutes. I'm like, what? We're in a different state. How is that physically possible?
Yeah. And of course, like there are nerds like myself who, when they travel to Boston, they do come up and they're like, oh, we have to go here because this is where all these things are located and they can like knock them out. But that's probably we're probably too small to be like a real tourist destination in and of itself. It's kind of like a side quest that you take when you're doing the bigger stuff in Boston. But that's a lot better than it was before, because nobody, people be like, Malden, is that a neighborhood? What, right? They just didn't even know.
Is there a model here for other towns or other neighborhoods out in the rest of the country?
Yeah, I think so. I think identifying what you already have that you can kind of like gamify in a way. So for example, there were a number of bars that were willing to add games to what they offer. There were a couple businesses that were kind of already on that spectrum, like a comic book shop and a hobby shop, and and then getting one or two businesses in kind of kickstarts things. As far as like the city's investment, they have done, like they invested in making like an ARG tour type thing, like a augmented reality tour of the area. But like most of the stuff is just a matter of asking, just outreach, a few signs. Like they put some signs up at the subway station and around town. And most of the press kind of just created itself. People were interested, they were curious. So I don't think it's a huge lift to do something like this.
But it definitely takes at least some folks who are willing to cooperate with each other, and hopefully at best someone in City Hall somewhere who can see the value of this and doesn't say like, oh, what? Huh? I don't understand.
and this is not specific to this project, but I think that one thing that the city's done really well is in an effort to kind of like get these businesses in as fast as possible. I've never heard of this before, and it's been really nice for us, is that they get, like, I think twice a week, they get all of the stakeholders in the city together in one room. So you have like somebody from the fire department, and you have like the electrical inspector. You have all of these people in one room, and they go over your stuff so that you get your answers like right away. And I think that was also like they give that pitch when businesses are thinking about opening up here in this district. And I think that's part of the success, because like any of these owners that have opened up elsewhere know how exhausting it is to go from one department to the next, trying to get your permits, trying to get your licenses, trying to get everything passed. And here it's like you have one contact who is like an escape room nerd, who just answers all your questions and makes everything happen behind the scenes. And then it's like, oh yeah, our meeting's on Thursday, so we'll get, you'll find out then. So, I mean, any town can do that. It's just a matter of coordination. No real cost involved.
Also might be a matter of the escape room and immersive nerds out there in the rest of the country going and taking some civil service jobs for them. Go in there.
Yes.
Go get your towns together. Go become the person running the permitting meeting. You want more of these things? Make it an inside job.
Everything's a puzzle if you just look at it differently.
Exactly. Politics, the ultimate immersive game.
Oh gosh.
I know I'm terrible sometimes. But it's good. I mean, like it is one of those things where, this sounds like a bit of an oasis to me. And I'm just like, oh, why can't it be this way elsewhere? Like I've been in a meeting room in LA where they had the mayor's office, the planning commission, the vice squad, the fire department, like practically ambushing a bunch of folks, immersive theater creators, site-specific theater creators, escape room designers, like, and they held their own. We held our own, but the sheer inertia, and the fact that, like, you get a sufficiently large enough, city, and like they don't want to do the thing. But I think the other part of the model here is like smaller towns and townships and places that are connected to a big town, but don't have the same kind of bureaucratic inertia, are probably like a great place for people to target if they want to get some of this stuff going on.
Yeah.
And the fact that Malden exists and can be a case study for folks is super valuable.
Yeah, I think any place that like is looking for that hook too, that's gonna make them stand out, right? Because like I said, all these cities are very small. How do you differentiate your town or city from all of these others?
Yeah. Well, James, you do have your own spot that you're building in Malden. Anything you want to tell us about the immersive gaming theater?
Oh, yeah. So I'm a big fan of immersive theater, and also of escape rooms. And so I kind of just was like, I want all the things. So who knows how well that's going to play out with, your everyday audience when suddenly they're put into this position where they're inhabiting some sort of entity that's not themselves. But for the right person, I think it'll be very engaging. It's kind of like we're building some of our own stuff, but we're also trying to find like other creators that we can also host their stuff. So that's what we did last year, is we hosted this artist who creates this series, this Reagan Esther Myers series about this post-apocalyptic Reagan-esque world that where kind of like everything is highly controlled and so on. And she has this one-woman show. It's an immersive concert, and so I was so thrilled to be able to get this for our space. Maybe we might be. I think she's working on some new stuff, so we might be able to get it there. But it's like the whole thing. So it's not just games necessarily, but interactive and immersive. I don't know. Can you tell I'm kind of like out of it, because opening up a business is exhausting. But we've been our first kind of like LARP-ish escape room game. It's called Every Day is Christmas, and it will run year round because every day is Christmas. And it's like a family friendly LARP thing at the North Pole. We've been working on the build out for almost a year now, and hope to be open by November, because I would like to eat good food again. Food is expensive, and opening a business is much more than that.
Oh yeah.
But please come out, and just as an aside, next time you're in New Hampshire and you have to visit a battleground or something like that, swing down.
Oh yeah. Trust me, when I get to leave, Southern California at some point, which I'm relatively landlocked, the gaming district is high on the list of things I want to go check out. So,
I forgot to mention that the mayor is actually going to be speaking at Recon next month, which is a reality escape convention. I think you've spoken with David and Lisa about that from Room Escape Artists, but the convention which is sold out. Fortunately, but unfortunately for anyone that is curious. But there's going to be a day excursion to the gaming district, and the mayor and Kevin Duffy, who's head of the business development, is going to give a talk about it. So people get to see it firsthand. And I think that they might make some additional content outside of the convention for people that are curious.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Well, and just, for those who are in New England as a whole, because again, small enough. And if you haven't gone down to Malden, make your way down there and check it out. And I know that some of the No Pro team and crew, like, they actually have to go out to Boston for like their day job stuff. And I think they're going to go visit. So I'm looking forward to the field reports. So it's quite exciting. James, I know you've got to, speaking of food, maybe get a little more lunch in before you go back to your day job. But I want to thank you so much for hopping on the podcast with us this week and telling us about the district.
Thanks, Noah.
Once again, I want to thank James and Kevin for being our guests on the show this week. While I have you for a couple of minutes, I want to draw your attention to the other two rings here in the No Proverse. That'd be the websites. Yes, websites. Of course, there's No Proscenium. There's also Everything Immersive. This has been a very busy week over at everythingimmersive.com. There's a flood of new material that's come through, lots of new shows, new work that's in Los Angeles. You got the Philly Fringe is spinning up. There's a whole bunch of work there. So plenty to go out and see. A lot of those links are going to come your way in the newsletter this week, or maybe you found your way here to the podcast from the newsletter, so you already know. Nevertheless, keep up with the latest by checking in with Everything Immersive at least a couple of times a week. Wednesdays are a great day to swing by. That's when the Trailheads goes out, leading you to some new adventures. But we update as things come in and reshuffle the front page as much as we can. Over at No Pro, we brought back a feature this week. I don't want to call it old because it's been rebuffed, and we haven't done this since 2018, which both feels not that long ago and is also 4 years ago all at the same time, which is like, what? You mean a kid could get through high school in that time? Yeah. So that feature we brought back is called the Immersive 5. This is where we ask a standard set of questions to immersive creators. So a bunch of creators have gotten this same question set, and we're going to roll these out once a week for a while, a new edition. This week, the Immersive 5 is being answered by Particle Inc. Speed of Dark's The Light Poets. That is the collective that is behind that show in Vegas. You can find that on the front page of No Pro right now. I'll also put it in the show notes. And of course, a new review rundown, which includes a look at Phantom Peak in London, which is this Victorian steampunk Americana Old West thing going on. Very, very fascinating that's happening in London. And then there's also a new edition of the Review Crew podcast, which you can find one click back in this feed. They're talking about phone shows, and there's going to be more Review Crews coming up in the not too distant future. They will get recorded in a week and then come out the next week. So I don't think the team recorded this week, so that means there's nothing next week, but look forward to one the week after, as the rhythm sort of comes back in with the team over there on the crew. The team on the crew, the crew on the team. That's it for me for right now. I'm fried. It is late into the summer. I could use a break, but no rest for me. Just none at all. I got to go make the newsletter for you, so I'm going to go do that right now. Let's do the bit at the end of the show. The associate producer of No Proscenium is Parker Sella. Music is by Chris Porter of the Speakeasy Society. Special thanks to Siobhan O'Loughlin for voicing our intro. And everything wrong with this is my fault. I'm Noah Nelson. Until next time, I'll see you at the show.